All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar on the donations and discount program. My name is Christine Hullem, and I'm the Events and Membership Coordinator here at Connecting Up. And with me today, I have Ryan Jones. He's the Marketing Coordinator, and he will be taking you through the program that we have, the products that we have available, and how it can hopefully meet your needs. If you do have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to type them in the question box and we will go through them as we go along. So anytime you feel like you want to ask something, just go ahead. And also just to let you know that we are recording this session and we will make the recording available afterwards, and we will send you through the slides of the presentation as well. And if you have any audio issue, again, please just type them up and we'll see what we can do. Other than that, I'll pass it on to Ryan.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks, everyone, for coming today. This webinar is all about you and all about what your organisation needs. I've put together a short presentation based on the questions that you asked when you registered for the webinar. But if you have any other questions as we go through the slides, ask them when they come up and we'll stop and we'll deal with them on the spot. Ask anything you like and we'll see how we go as we go through the webinar. So one of the common questions that we had was, how do I know which donors I can request from? So as some of you would know, not all of our donor partners can donate to every not-for-profit. So they all have their own specific areas of giving. So how you tell which donors you can get access to is you click on the My Account link in the top black bar on the Connecting Up website once you've logged in, and then you click on the link, What Can I Get? And that will bring up a list of all of our donor partners and whether you qualify or you don't qualify. And if you have any questions on that, our customer support staff can help you with that. So some quick basics that are always useful in these kind of presentations. One of the big advantages of the donations program is that it helps your organisation get all on the one version of a product. So in some cases, different people on different versions of products like Office can introduce some incompatibilities with fonts and when trying to group edit files. So the software donation program makes it really easy to just make sure that you don't have any of those small issues. And then the other advantage is, of course, if everybody's on the same version of Windows or the same operating systems, the same software, then everyone can quite easily use each other's computers. There's no learning curve involved at all. In terms of 32-bit and 64-bit software, we quite often get asked, what do I need and why do I need it? It comes down to two things. It comes down to the operating system that you're using and the processor in your computer. So if the processor in your computer can support 64-bit software, I would install a 64-bit version of Windows. And the main advantage of 64-bit software is that it can use more than 3.5 gigabytes of RAM. So if your computer has 4 gigabytes of RAM or 4 gigabytes of memory or more, definitely go with the 64-bit of the software. If you have a 32-bit operating system on your computer, then you can also switch that over to a 64-bit version. And what is a client access license? A client access license is a piece of software that you will need if you have Microsoft servers or products like Dynamics or SharePoint. Every user or device that connects to that server needs a client access license. Whether that is a user client access license or a device client access license depends on your particular situation. But one user can access a server from as many computers as they want. So if a user is using a computer at their desk, and then they might use a shared laptop when they have to go out on site, and they might have a mobile phone that they access things through as well, or a tablet, then it would be more economically viable to order user cows instead of device cows. If you have shared computers, so such as a shared computer pool or something like that, where lots of different users can access the same devices, then you'd probably be better off using device cows. And in terms of server versus cloud, this has been a more and more common question. Basically, cloud is a server that exists in a data center or in a supplier's server. You don't own the physical hardware, so you don't need to maintain the physical hardware, and you can install your donated licenses on that server, and you can quite easily upgrade and downgrade depending on what your organization's requirements are. We have some questions, Christine?
Yes, as Ryan said, we're going to try to make this webinar very interactive, so we're going to ask questions throughout the way. Peter is asking, are there any standard or common software that won't work on 64-bit?
Not these days, no. There are some products now that are coming out that don't work on 32-bit, just because they need more memory than they used to. But these days, we're not seeing any products really come out that don't work in 64-bit.
Great, that's the only question on that part, so please go on.
Perfect. Cool. So some basics of the Microsoft Software Donation Program. If your organization is eligible for the program, in general, you can order up to 10 titles and up to 50 copies of each. What's a title? An example of a title might be Windows 8, Microsoft Office. So you could order up to 50 copies of Microsoft Office. But in terms of the titles, you might order 20 copies of Office Professional Plus and 30 copies of Office Standard, and together they make up the 50 copies that you can order as part of that title group. There are a couple of exceptions. They would be server licenses, where you can order up to 5 server licenses, regardless of title group or license restrictions. And Windows 8 Get Genuine. Windows 8 Get Genuine counts as part of the Windows 8 title group, so you can order up to 50 copies of Windows 8 upgrades or Get Genuine, or a combination of the two. But Windows 8 Get Genuine is designed as a one-off donation to your non-profit to make sure that you're up to date on the latest version with legal copies of everything, have access to upgrades and everything else that you need. And then from then on out, you can just order the upgrades when Windows 9 comes out. And it can be a little bit confusing. If you don't know what you have ordered, if you don't know how much more you can order, then if you go to connectingup.org/donations/Microsoft_donation_center, which is written, the link's written on the page there, then that shows you quite quickly what you have received, the retail value of the software you've received, which can be quite scary, and shows you how much more you can order as part of those title groups. It makes it all very simple. If you haven't seen that Microsoft Donation Center before, I highly recommend you jump on the website after this webinar and have a quick look.
Ryan, we don't have a question on this just, actually. Are the purchase of titles forever or per year?
The purchase of titles is forever, or the donation is forever. It's actually a good segue to my next slide, so I might take the rest of the questions after the next slide. One of the main differences with the software donated through the Microsoft Donation Program is that they are volume licenses, which need to be activated through the Volume License Service Center. Now, one of the benefits of this is that you get 2 years of software assurance. So for 2 years from when you receive your donation, you can log on to the Microsoft Volume License Service Center and download the latest version of the software that's been donated to your organization. So they're big upgrades, like if a new version of Office was released this year and you ordered Office 2010 today, then you would automatically get to download the new version of Office. Now that software assurance is only for 2 years, but after that 2 years you can still use the version that you've got with no problems at all. And then if you need an upgrade after the 2 years, then you would have to request that again through the donations program. So that's the only thing that expires, but definitely your licenses don't expire.
Sorry.
The other benefit of the software donation program is that you get access to quick and easy software downloads. So you can log into the Volume License Service Center, you can download any software that you have license keys for, or any software that you have access to through the software assurance program, and you also have access to all of your Microsoft keys in one place.
Someone's just asking, going back about the server licenses. Once upon a time, you could only order one copy of a server license at a time, for example, Windows Server 2003. So are you saying that now you can order, for example, 5 copies of Windows Server 2008 in one hit?
Essentially, yes. Depends on your exact circumstances, but essentially, yes. The Microsoft ordering restrictions changed about 18 months ago. Previously, you could only place one Microsoft order a year, and it had to be a minimum of 5 licenses. Now you can order as often as you like, and you can order a minimum of 1 license. No problems at all, and you can keep track of that through that Microsoft donation center that I referenced before.
Do you need to upgrade your small business server version 2008 to change to Windows 8?
No. No. Microsoft Small Business Server has now been discontinued as well. So if you were looking to upgrade that, you'd need to upgrade to Windows Server 2012.
Can you upgrade to Office 365 from Office 2010 or only to Office 2013?
Only to Office 2013 at this stage. Office 365 is something that we're looking at, and we'll see what comes out of that at a later date.
I'm just going to quickly ask 2 more questions related to those things, Ryan. Does your 10 title or 50 copy allocation reset after a certain amount of time?
Absolutely. That resets after 2 years from when you placed your first order. And that reset date is also on that Microsoft Donation Center.
And going back to your 32 versus 64-bit, someone asked if there were any issues with running 32-bit software on 64-bit systems. They were told that they may have to update to newer printers because some did not have the 60-bit compatible drivers available.
That's not a software thing, that's a driver thing. And yes, that can be the case, but depending on what your printer is, there may also be generic drivers available through Windows. Back when Windows XP 64-bit came out, it was really sensitive to things like that. But now that Windows 7 64-bit and Windows 8 64-bit are definitely not as pedantic as perhaps XP was. And we find in general around here our printers are automatically detected by Windows, and we don't need any special drivers.
How can you find out if you're running 32-bit or 64-bit?
Just go to the control panels and open up the system control panel. You may have to click on the button to show everything by icon, but if you open the system option in your control panel, then you'll be able to see in there. It'll give you all the details about your operating system, including your license key.
After 2 years, can I choose to continue to pay software assurance on the donated licenses, then get another 50 license through connecting up with more software assurance? The idea being this would be a cheaper way to build up a library of software under software assurance.
It's a good question, which I don't know the exact answer to off the top of my head. However, last time we looked into the cost of software assurance, it definitely wasn't a cheaper option to do it that way. It would definitely make more sense to request the additional licenses through the program.
How many CALs for server 2010 can, 2012. So how many CALs for server 2012 can they order, and they're ordered in batches of how many?
You can order up to 50, and they can be in batches of 1. So if you had 25 staff at the moment, you needed 25 cows, and then in future you had 1 extra staff member come on, so you needed 1 extra cow, you could order just the 1.
We have a question about whether Windows 8 is preferable to Windows 7. Just quickly, just to let you know also that we will be running a separate webinar on Windows 8 in the near future, so keep an eye on that. But I don't know if Ryan wants to add any comment on that in particular, Windows 8 versus Windows 7.
I would love to, because that's the next slide. Windows 8, obviously brand new, just out. It's got a few things in it that optimize it for touchscreens. Around the Connecting Up office, we've been using it now for a few months. In general, everybody's found that it's pretty much like Windows 7, except with a different start menu. And even then, the start menu, you can make changes to that so that it's very similar to Windows 7. The main things that we've noticed are that the computers are running faster, which is one of the most important things to me. It does take a little bit of getting used to. A couple of things are in slightly different places, but the learning curve isn't that steep from Windows 7, and any increase in speed, especially on older computers, is always preferred. So Windows 8 is available as the Get Genuine licenses, which I was talking about before. The Get Genuine licenses are designed as a one-off to get you up to date and on legal versions of the software. And then upgrades are available from previous versions of Windows. Just bear in mind that if you're upgrading from Windows 7, you can just do an in-place upgrade. So it's very easy, you don't have to worry about losing any of your data. If you're upgrading from Windows Vista or Windows 7, then you'll need to format your hard drive as part of that and start again. It's a clean install for those. Now, one of the important things about Windows 8 is that it also marks the end of Windows XP. Microsoft have now marked Windows XP as end of life and will not be issuing any more security updates very soon. So Windows 8 is a great opportunity for your organization to get up to date on the latest version of Windows and make sure that you have secure operating systems moving forward and you continue to get those updates.
Just quickly, are you going to be discussing eligibility for multi-branch discounts?
No. If you want more information about eligibility for multi-branch, then contact our customer support team and their details will be at the end of this presentation.
What is the upgrade path for Windows Vista? Do they need to go via Windows 7 or straight to 8?
You can go straight to 8, but it's a clean upgrade. So you can't do an in-place upgrade. Some people don't like doing in-place upgrades anyway, so it depends on what you'd like to do. But if you have a copy of Vista Business or Vista Ultimate, you can upgrade to Windows 8 Pro or Windows 8 Enterprise. Okay, next up, Microsoft Office. It's one of the most popular products that we have in the range. A couple of important things. There are still some not-for-profits out there using versions earlier than 2007. I'm sure you're all aware by now, but the earlier versions are not supported anymore, and Office 2007 brought in a new format of file called docx. Now the docx files, Microsoft did release a compatibility pack so you could open them in Office 2003, but you can't edit them and save them as docx again. So any organisation using a version of Office earlier than 2007, I highly recommend you upgrade to the latest version. In terms of the latest version, there's a standard version and a Professional Plus version. The main benefits for Professional Plus are Microsoft Access, which is a database program, Business Contact Manager, which a lot of people use with Outlook to keep a track of their contacts, and some tools for server integration. So if you work in an organization that has a link server for chat, a SharePoint server for the intranet, a Groove server, then there are tools included with Microsoft Office Professional Plus to help you integrate with all of those products. And it's also important to note that we also offer the Microsoft software for Macs through the donations program, so Office for Mac 2011 is also available.
We don't have questions yet on Office, but I do have a few questions from before. Don't get too happy yet. There are a few coming in. I don't have a genuine software and want to get my system legal. Can I simply install Windows 8 over my not genuine software?
Depends on what version of not genuine software you've got. I would say the safest bet is to order the Get Genuine software and do a clean install. Especially if you're moving from a non-genuine license, I'd recommend that you start fresh with a clean install of Windows 8.
Great. Similar again, upgrading questions. I'm not sure if this has been answered before, but can you upgrade to a professional version of Windows 8 from a lesser version?
So a version of Windows 7 Home or something like that? No, you can't. That would be under the mislicensed versions of Windows, so you ought to get genuine licenses for those computers. Then once you have the Get Genuine licenses, you'll be able to upgrade them from there.
What is the upgrade path from XP? XP, sorry.
Yeah, the upgrade path from XP is just a clean install, exactly the same as Vista. So back up all your data, and I can't remember if it's a format or not, but either way you need to completely redo the operating system. So when you're doing that, it's always best to have backups of everything.
Can we use our NFP license on our home computers?
I want to say spoiler alert, because that's my last slide, so can I save that until the end?
Sure, you can.
Great, thank you.
A few questions here on Office. Will all documents prior to 2007 be readable by latest versions of Office?
Yes, the new version is completely backwards compatible, but it's just that the new file format isn't backwards compatible.
And does the Office suite include Publisher?
Yes, both versions come with Publisher.
A new version of Office for Mac seems to be on the horizon. If we buy one now, does the advertised free upgrade apply to these versions?
The Mac versions don't come with software assurance, unfortunately, but I'm a bit of a Mac news freak, and I haven't seen anything about a new version of Office for Mac on the horizon. Usually they're not in step with their PC licenses, so usually I'd expect that. There's a new version of Office expected this year, so I would expect the Mac version to be coming out next year or the year after.
We do have a few other questions on Office and Windows. However, I think we should just go on because you do have a few other products that you would like to cover, and I think some people are interested in different things outside the Microsoft products. So please just go ahead, Ryan.
Sure. I think there are a couple of questions that I'll probably answer as we go along as well. So the other thing that's been really popular is the Refurbished computer program. So these refurbished computers are discounted rather than donated, and the range includes desktop computers, laptops, MacBooks and iMacs. So we do cater for Windows users and Mac users. There are no order limits on these, and in some cases there are also volume discounts on these. We get a bit of a deal on freight if you order a few, so we try and keep the costs down as far as we can to you. They're also refurbished by Microsoft certified refurbishers. So they are fitted out with Windows 7 and Office 2007 Home and Student, except for the Macs, which come with the version of Mac OS that was installed on them at the time. So that's clearly mentioned in the listing for them which version comes with that. But you can also upgrade through the Apple App Store for those ones. And now you can actually log on to the Connecting Up website and you can request RAM upgrades and pre-installed antivirus. So if you want to upgrade your computers when you order them, then that's now easy to do straight through the website. Now, a very new addition to the range is Adobe. So Adobe are donating their software to eligible not-for-profits, and they've got a wide range of software for most organizations. So when you're placing an Adobe order, you can request one creative suite, I'll explain what that is in a sec, or up to 4 different products. So a creative suite is Adobe's bundle of software for different applications. So Design and Web Premium and Production Premium are the 2 that we offer through the donations program. Design and Web Premium is more geared towards people who are doing print and web design and publications. So you get Adobe's graphics product, Photoshop, Illustrator for vector design, InDesign, which is a really good program for print publications, Acrobat Professional, Dreamweaver, and a couple of other tools that are required to build all together. Production Premium is geared towards video production. So you get a copy of Adobe Premiere, Adobe Audition, which is an audio editing program. You get some other tools for video production and video color calibration. And you get Photoshop, which is useful for your titles and things like that. So Photoshop, Acrobat Pro, Dreamweaver and InDesign are also available on their own, and those 4 and the Creative Suites are both available for both Mac and PC. Photoshop and Premiere come in an Elements bundle. Elements is a slightly easier to use version of Photoshop and Premiere. Yeah, which is a bit simpler. And they come in a bundle which basically gives you everything that you need to get started with some more immediate video.
Sorry, I think there's some issue with the audio because you might have heard Ryan lagging a little bit. Is it okay now? I think it does come through now. Great. Just a few questions on Adobe. Can you just go through the restrictions in terms of Adobe orders and things? I guess eligibility restrictions, etc.
Yeah, it's 1 order per year, and like I said, it's 1 creative suite or 4 individual products.
And will Adobe send CDs or will it be downloaded via key only? Sorry, will Adobe send CDs or will it be downloaded via key only?
Downloaded via a website.
That calendar year, sorry, the 1 year thing, is it a calendar or financial year?
Financial year.
That was all the questions we have on Adobe. Just quickly on a question on the refurbished computers. What warranties are on the discounted computers?
It's 3 months.
And how many devices or users do the Adobe licenses cover?
1.
This is like a Q&A session. I ordered a Creative Suite and have now realized that it was for a 64-bit system, but I'm running a 32-bit system. Will it still work?
Yeah, you just need to log back onto the Adobe website where you downloaded the software from in the first place, and there are separate downloads for the 32-bit versions. The only issue is some of the Adobe products only work in 64-bit computers. So as far as I know, Premiere Pro is one of those now. I think Photoshop is as well. As these products get more and more complicated, they need more and more memory. They're very memory hungry beasts. So they just need the extra RAM that comes along with the 64-bit system. So if there isn't a 32-bit installer of your software available on that Adobe website, then you would probably need to upgrade your system to a 64-bit system.
Can Adobe be installed on a server?
Depends on how you want to do it. I suspect it probably can be. It just depends on what products you're using. I wouldn't want to use it on a server though. There would be quite a lot of lag in terms of the interface. If you're trying to use remote desktop with an Adobe product, Adobe products are geared very heavily towards graphics, so they require dedicated graphics cards, and they do need that video memory as well. So trying to run them on a server, I think, would probably cause you a few issues.
Okay, we might move on to the next slide.
Sure. So some things people asked me was, what can I actually do with all this software? It's great that I can get it, and I understand that I can get it, but I don't know what benefit it is to my organization. So some of the main things that people were after were software to allow staff to work remotely. CRM is a big buzzword at the moment. So what is a CRM, and what can I get through connecting up? How can I help my staff work more collaboratively? And we even had some people asking about sending and receiving emails, email servers, things like that. There are some great case studies on the Connecting Up website if you want to have a look at what similar organizations have done themselves. So the URL is just connectingup.org/case-studies. But we'll have a quick look at some of these in more detail. So CRM software is customer or constituent relationship management. Now the word customer have to scare off everyone. It's basically a way of tracking individuals or individual organizations. So this can be used for member-based organizations to track members, things about them. Patient records can be used to track donors and funders. Basically anywhere where you have to track people. We had an example from a webinar we ran this morning, tracking employees, using it to track contact with employees. So all of that can be done through CRM. They can be adjusted according to your requirements. Microsoft Dynamics CRM is the CRM that's available through Connecting Up. And Dynamics CRM comes in two main varieties. There is a workgroup version, which is designed for smaller not-for-profits, which can be connected to by up to 5 different users. And there is a more enterprise version. They don't call it enterprise version anymore, but Dynamics Server 2011 can be connected to by virtually an unlimited number of clients, depending on how many cows you order and what the power of your server is. Depending on how you want to use Dynamics and what in-house IT staff you've got, you may want to consult with a professional before you start looking at implementing Dynamics, because there can be a bit of a learning curve involved in actually implementing it.
Can Dynamics CRM be used as an accounting software package, for example, instead of MyOb?
I don't know. Nobody's ever asked me that. I don't see why it couldn't be set up in similar ways. There are a number of templates available for Dynamics that will preset up Dynamics. I would say you'd probably be better off using a proper accounting software though, like MyOb, which takes care of your GST reporting and things like that. There are also a number of accounting packages now which will interface with your Dynamics, so they'll be able to pull data straight out.
Interesting, I've heard a few comments here from someone who said they use Dynamics as their accounting software, but then another person said, no, you can't use it to replace accounting software. So I guess it just depends on how sophisticated you want the system to do. And while we're talking about Dynamics, I thought I also just mentioned that we did run a Dynamics CRM webinar last year, and the recording is available on our YouTube channel, and on the follow-up email I will send you the link to the webinar recording so you can have a look at them.
In its basic elements, Dynamics CRM is a database, and your accounting software is powered by databases as well. So as long as you can customize it to put in the functionality required for the accounting that you do, then it should be able to be used for some of the more simpler ways of accounting. But I wouldn't like to use it for payroll and things like that. I think that would cause a lot of headaches.
Is there a CRM for Mac?
Dynamics CRM has a web client that can be used on Macs, and there are a few other CRMs out there. We have some webinar recordings on our YouTube channel about them, CiviCRM being one of them. Majority of them these days are web-based in some way, shape or form. So being web-based, they can be accessed from Macs or PCs. All right. Citrix was another one. Citrix is great for working remotely with staff. It is great for running webinars like this one. We use it to run all of our webinars here at Connecting Up. It's great for teleconferencing, online training, things like that. Things where you need to have a group of people meeting and it's not viable to have them meet online. Australia is a big country, so it's really useful to have access to these kind of products here. Now the Citrix program works a little bit differently to some of the other programs through Connecting Up. Citrix offer their products at a 90% discount. So the 10% that you have to pay for these products, 5% is paid to Connecting Up as an administration fee, and 5% is paid directly to Citrix. So once you've placed your order with Connecting Up, you then go to the Citrix website to pay the balance of that. But the products available: GoToMeeting, GoToTraining, and GoToMyPC, I think it is, all offer you the ability to web conference, share screens, and collaborate like that.
We have a question similar to what we had this morning, actually, Ryan. What's the benefit of GoToMeeting over Skype?
We had exactly the same question this morning. Skype is really good if you're doing one-on-one tutoring and one-on-one conferencing, but Skype you do need to pay for if you want to have more than 2 people in the conference. And once you're dealing with more than 2 people, particularly in a training scenario, the additional features of Citrix are more geared towards being able to deliver that kind of training, being able to look at each other's screens, being able to interact, ask questions, things like that. If you are looking at doing training with big groups or groups of 5, 10 or more, then I would suggest Citrix would be a lot easier to do that than Skype.
Is GoToAssist available? I don't believe so, but maybe you can have a bit more talk about that.
Not at this stage, no.
What is the estimated cost to implement Citrix, and does it require a high level of IT skills to manage it?
No, the person who manages Citrix GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar in our organisation is Christine. Our IT department stay well away from it just because they're not required. Once you've registered for the software, it's really point and click through their website, setting your times and setting your appointments and downloading the software onto your computer. The software is also all relatively easy to use. But once you've got your discounted copy, I highly recommend sitting down and running a couple of dummy webinars just to get an idea of how it works and what you can do with it. We rehearsed all of our webinars many times before we started doing them, just so that we were aware of any problems that we could have with the software.
Yes, I can also say that it's a very easy to use platform once you're familiar with it, or it's a very easy to learn platform. Can you use Citrix GoToMeeting with more than 25 users? Well, actually the question is, can you use Citrix with more than 25 users?
GoToMeeting you can't. They do another product called GoToWebinar, but we don't offer that through the program at this stage.
Does Citrix charge per meeting based on time frame spent online?
No, you pay for your 1-year subscription at the discounted rate.
Can anyone in the organization create or host a meeting?
It depends on who's holding the keys. If you're in an organization where everyone's happy to share the keys around, then sure. Some organizations would rather limit it. That's an organizational policy thing rather than a limitation in the Citrix software.
Yes, it is about the account after all. Our organization recently, does my copy of GoToMeeting only accessible from one PC, or can I log through my laptop when out of office? Again, I think that's to do with account. So you can.
Yeah, you can definitely, yeah, you can.
How much, you mentioned that you get 90% discount, so it's only 10% cost. How much is that 10% cost off the top of your head, Ryan? I think we can probably check that online. I'll get back to you a bit later.
I don't know that off the top of my head, but my lovely assistant Sarah here is about to look it up.
Yeah, we'll get back to you, Jamie, on that.
So GoToMeeting is
$44?
$44. So the total price would be $88, and you pay $44 to us, and you pay $44 to Citrix.
Okay, we have some more slides to go through, Ryan.
Yep, a couple more.
Let's just go ahead and continue.
So networking is one that we had a lot of questions about this time, which we don't usually get, which was great. Networking is a really good way of linking all your computers together, sharing files, sharing internet connections. Most organizations with multiple computers these days would have some form of networking. So through connecting up, you can get access to high-speed wired or wireless networking equipment. So that's right up to gigabit wired equipment, or some of the wireless equipment now is 300 megabytes a second, which is reasonably fast. So there are two different ways of getting access to networking products through connecting up. One of them is through Cisco donations. So Cisco donate their products to certain not-for-profits, and through that product you can get access to modems, you can get access to wireless access points, routers which will assist you in sharing internet connections, switches, so switches or hubs as they're also called, link all your computers together into the network. And D-Link is the same, but D-Link also extends to a couple of other products like surveillance software and network storage devices. Now, because networking is such a big topic on its own, we will be running a separate webinar later, which we'll send you emails about after this webinar, on the ins and outs of networking and what does what and goes where and things like that. But I'll be happy to answer any basic questions about the Cisco and the D-Link products now, if anyone has any questions.
Does Cisco provide 16-port routers?
Yes, yes they do. I think they offer up to 48 port.
A few questions on, just going back to Citrix. What speed internet do we need to run Citrix? We struggle getting voice sometimes with Skype.
Citrix tries to run on a variable quality scale to cater for different quality internet connections. But if worst comes to worst, there is a phone backup option. So you can actually ring through to a number and get the audio over a phone line instead of getting it through a computer. That can help some people. Sometimes it's just necessary to have the slides and the video, but that would come down to your individual internet connection.
Right, let's just move on.
Cool, okay, so in terms of working collaboratively, and especially if you've got people working from other offices and on the road, Microsoft SharePoint is a really good product for keeping everyone involved. It's intranet software that's quite popular It's basically, it's like an internal internet site, internal website. You can use as message boards, you can store all your important files on there, policies, logos, things like that. And then SharePoint integrates with other Microsoft products like Dynamics, Microsoft Office web apps, things like that to give you almost like a mini cloud, a mini suite of web-based software that you can use internally or externally or wherever you might be. So SharePoint has been a really good product. There are some webinar recordings on our YouTube channel which explain a bit more about SharePoint, and there is a SharePoint conference coming up in Melbourne and Sydney, I believe, and through Connecting Up, the organisation that runs that conference is giving quite heavy discounts. So you can find out more about that at connectingup.org/events. But if you are interested in SharePoint, it might be worth looking at those webinar recordings and seeing whether that can work for your organisation. So you just install that on your Windows server and then it'll integrate with all of the other things. Again, it can be a bit tricky to configure. You might need some external help with that. But once it's set up, it can be really useful for you.
Can users of Macs and PCs use SharePoint together?
Yeah, it's web-based, so any web browser can access it. Okay, so email. A few people asked about hosting your own email. Exchange Server 2010 is Microsoft's solution. We use it at Connecting Up, and it is really quite excellent. At Connecting Up, all of our email boxes are hosted by Exchange, and that means that it also hosts our calendars and our tasks and things like that. So if I want to have a meeting with Christine, I can actually go to Outlook and I can open her calendar and I can see when she has meetings and I can schedule my meeting in to fit around her. So that can be quite useful, especially if you're organising meetings with, say, 10 different staff. Because the calendars are all accessible, it's a lot easier because you can just go directly into their diary and see when they are available. A few people are also asking about sharing inboxes so that you can see when emails have been read, when they've been replied to, things like that. We use an Exchange Server mailbox to manage all of our customer care at Connecting Up, and our customer support team can see which emails have been read. They can see which emails have been replied to, and they can store them in different folders, categorize them, and work on them as a team. So if somebody's away for a day, there's no delay. The emails are still able to be handled by other people in the team. So Exchange Server can be installed on your own server internal to your organization, which is probably what a lot of you are already doing, or you can host it on a remote server through a data center or something like that, or a cloud server as well. Once you've got your license of Exchange Server, you can host it on any server you like, really.
So what would be the advantage of hosting on server versus cloud with this Exchange?
If it was on your internal server, then the speed is going to be a little bit faster internally through the network, just because it's local to you. It doesn't have to go through the internet connection. But if it's on the cloud, then it means that it's constantly available as long as there's an internet connection to that server. Quite often, if an organisation has the server hosted internally and the internet connection to that organisation goes down, then emails aren't being received because they can't get through to the server. If it was on the cloud, then the emails will get delivered to the server and then they will just be delivered to the organisation when the organisation's internet connection comes back up. Obviously, data centres, they can still have internet downtime, same as anyone, but in general, they've all got license agreements which insist on 99.999% uptime and things like that. So the chances of their internet connection going down is a lot lower than the chances of an organisation's internet connection going down.
Will Exchange Server allow you to use Outlook to manage venue or resource hire?
You could use a shared calendar for that. Yep, yeah, internally. You probably couldn't use it externally.
It can or it does replace Outlook calendars. It's basically integrated.
It integrates with Outlook, so you would use Outlook to access those calendars. So Exchange Server would host the email or the inboxes, and then Outlook will pull the data from the Exchange Server. They work together.
Are there any advantages using Exchange for managing spam?
No, in general, you'd probably want to install one of a range of different solutions on your Exchange server to help with the spam. So we have, I think we have Semantic, Kaspersky, and Sophos solutions for that available through the donations and discounts programs.
Do you have a few more slides, Ryan, or is this basically it?
I have one.
Just a question slide.
Alright, so when I said spoiler alert before about installing the software on your own computer, that's because I had this last slide coming up. So volunteers and donations is something that we get a few questions about. Some organisations simply can't afford to buy dedicated computers to run their organisations, but the volunteers still need access to the software to do what they need to do as part of their role with the organisation. It is possible to request donated software for an organisation and then install it on computers owned by volunteers, but the not-for-profit must always retain ownership of those software licenses. When those volunteers leave the organisation, they uninstall the software, and then the organisation can reinstall it on somebody else's computer, on the next volunteer's computer. The main thing here is that the software is being donated to the not-for-profit itself, and so the not-for-profit retains ownership even if other people need to use it as part of their duties.
Just following on from that question, I did have a question from earlier on that if they're donating their old computers to their clients, do they have to take off the Microsoft products purchased through the donations program? And I assume the answer is yes.
Yes, that's correct. If you're donating the machine to the clients, then the machines need to be cleaned of the donated software that's owned by the not-for-profit. If you're lending them the computer, on the other hand, as long as you retain ownership of the computer and the software on it, then there's no problems with that at all.
What about the same license on work and home computer?
You can't use the same license on the two computers, but if you're using the home computer for work-related things, there's no problem installing another license on that as long as you're employed there.
So you'd mentioned before about if the volunteers left, then you retake that license. What can you do if a volunteer has become deceased? I mean, is there any restrictions and is there anything that we can do about that?
It's a really tricky one, not one that we've had to deal with so far, thankfully. If the license is retained by the not-for-profit, so hopefully they'll do the right thing, and when the computer goes out, the computer will be cleaned up anyway of all the private data. As an organisation, I guess that's part of the risk that you have to manage. My bigger concern would probably be the organisation data on that computer.
I think that was the last slide that you have, Ryan, is there? I mean, apart from the question slide.
Very lovely questions slide.
Alright, I will try to go back to the earlier questions that we didn't get to address before, one by one. So please be patient, and we do still have a few minutes left. And Ryan is able to stay a bit afterwards if you are happy to stay and get your question answered. What about Office software for iPad? Do you know anything about that, Ryan?
Microsoft, it's long been rumoured, but Microsoft have yet to announce anything. There are a few apps that are available for the iPad that can open Microsoft Office files. I think I'm using one called Office 2 HD or something like that, but none of these products are available through the donations program at this stage.
Next few questions are about Windows 8 and similar stuff. Can you clarify whether server software needs updating for organizations that wish to run on Windows 8?
Within reason, no, it doesn't. But if you're running Windows, say SBS 2003, Small Business Server 2003, we recently started to find that there were limitations with Server 2003 in our own network. So we've just upgraded our server to the latest version of Windows Server. It totally depends on the functionality you require. But if you're using a really old server like Server 2003, I'd recommend you upgrade regardless.
Can we use the Windows 8 upgrade onto systems that have been cloned? Thinking.
I probably wouldn't want to, but I don't see why you couldn't upgrade the clone image, but you would need to make sure that you had one license per terminal.
If we have mixed operating systems, i.e. Macs and PCs, can we order a combination of Office for Mac and Windows 8 plus Office licenses? I take it to a total of 10 titles?
Yeah, absolutely. So Windows 8 is fine. You can order up to 50 licenses of that. And obviously these days you can install Windows 8 on the Macs as well. But your Office licenses, they would come from the same title group. So you could order, say, 25 copies of Office 2010 and 25 copies of Office 2011 for Mac, or however you want to mix that 50 title limit up.
The next question is on Adobe Acrobat. With Acrobat Pro, how many computers in your workplace can it be installed in?
One license can be installed on one computer.
Going back to Citrix, our organization recently purchased GoTo 12-month subscription, not realizing that Connecting Up discount was available. Can it be applied retrospectively?
No, unfortunately not.
And are all Citrix products discounted? I mean, we did talk about GoToMeeting, but what about other Citrix products that's available?
At this point in time, only the 3 that are on the website. But if any more become available at any point in the future, we'll make sure that we communicate that to everyone.
Does that 3 include Citrix for remote access for staff?
No, not that Citrix. No, it's only the webinar software.
Do you need a server to run SharePoint?
Yes.
Going to the Exchange software, would this software burden a server and slow it down?
Depends on how many users and depends on how powerful the server is. If you had enough users and big enough mailboxes, then yes, definitely. I would have a review of the system requirements and a review of your actual requirements first.
What about networking over 2 buildings that's about 1 kilometers apart? Ryan's quiet, that means he's thinking, so it's not like you've lost your audio, so don't worry.
Thanks for clarifying that, Christine. Realistically, you could run a wireless network with an external antenna. The external antennas are available through Cisco and D-Link. But I think your most reliable solution would probably be to talk to your internet service provider. Sometimes they can provide a solution to link the 2 buildings and to fire the data through between the 2 buildings. You can also set up VPN, or virtual private network, so that you can share resources, but that's not really going to help you share internet connections and things like that.
Do you have any suggestions for good cloud service to host our Exchange server?
Not at this stage, but watch this space and we'll see what we can do for you.
Are there any products available that you would recommend for room booking or venue management? Not registration, just room booking and venue management. We are currently using the calendars on the internal website through Windows Small Business Server 2008, which works well. However, would prefer a product more specific to this. Anything you can think of?
Well, it sounds like you're already using something very similar to Exchange. So if you're not using Exchange, you're using an older version of it. So upgrading to a newer version of Exchange probably won't help you too much. There are a few interesting products available now that are mainly geared towards personal calendars, not really building calendars. We'll get back to you on that one. We'll get Christine to grab your name and we'll get back to you on that one. It's a bit specialised. We'll need some research.
If I purchase a Microsoft Office license for a volunteer in our organization, can I then forward the downloaded email to that user for them to download or install? Is Microsoft Office only available as download, or do they send CD with the files?
They send a CD. The reason why I wouldn't send the license key information to the volunteer is because you need to register that information on the Volume License Service Center. So what you would need to do is you would need to register those details with the Volume License Service Center to get the key that the volunteer needs. Once you've done that, you could copy and paste the key from the Volume License Service Center and email it to the volunteer. But personally, I wouldn't be giving volunteers the username and password to the Volume License Service Center. They'll have access to every license your organisation has, and they'll be able to clone your software and do all kinds of things that it's probably just safer not to give it out.
Talking about cloning again, someone mentioned that they have tried to load the Windows 8 upgrade on a system that they cloned, but they can't get the upgrade to work. Is this because it's been cloned?
It shouldn't be because it's been cloned, but there are so many different things there that could be at play. It's difficult for me to say exactly what it could be. Yeah, without more information, that one's a bit difficult to answer, unfortunately. But we'll get your details and I can touch base with you after the webinar.
Would you recommend local server or cloud for a small NFP of 8 to 10 users?
Depending on how many of those, if those 8 to 10 users are all internal and you already have a server, then I'd stay with an internal server. If you are debating whether to buy an external server, whether you were debating whether to buy a new server, then I'd probably be recommending that you host online just on a cloud server, because that's going to save you the capital outlay of buying the server. It's probably also going to get you some assistance in terms of tech help from the hosting provider. If those 8 to 10 people are all working all over the place, then definitely a remote server.
Is the server upgrade available through Connecting Up?
The hardware or the software?
It's just a question. Jamie, if you want to just message me to confirm whether it's a hardware server or a software server. Sorry,
we don't have hardware server available through the donations program at this stage. But if you get in touch with customer care, it is possible to look into that for you. If it's the software, then the software is available through the donations program, through the Microsoft program. Small Business Server has been replaced by Windows Server 2012. Microsoft went back and remade their server software so that it catered to everyone, and it was also a bit more of a cloud hybrid type scenario. So it works a bit better in all scenarios.
Would you recommend a project management software?
We've used Microsoft Project here in the past, and we find Microsoft Project quite good. There are desktop versions which are really only for one user, and then there are server versions with client access licenses so that you can share the project information. So that's all available through the donations program.
Can you recommend any best donated or discounted software available for collating scanned documents?
Adobe Acrobat would be quite good for that. Adobe Acrobat can create PDFs from scanned files straight off your printer. It's also good for collating the files, but I guess it depends on what the files are. If they're all text-based documents, then I'd probably go with Adobe Acrobat. If they are photos, things like that, I would probably be looking at, actually, in most cases, the built-in software in Windows is probably going to be fine.
This is a question I had from earlier on. Does Business Contact Manager integrate contacts or calendars over our computers?
Yeah, the calendars and contact databases are shared through Exchange, but it does depend on your individual configuration, whether you're using Exchange or whether everyone's on the same version of Office with Business Contact Manager.
Two last questions here. The first one to do with calendar again. We have a lot of trouble with our Outlook calendar. Is there another option you would recommend?
Depends on what version of Outlook and what version of Exchange server you're using as to what the exact problem is. We use Exchange server and Outlook here, and we don't have any problems with it. So it could be that you're using an older version.
And just one last question, I think to do with your previous slide, Ryan, about having the discount or donated software for other purposes. What about installing NFP software on someone's home PC for the purpose of managing the NFP systems from home? For example, Adobe software to manage the NFP's website. I believe that should be all right.
Well, technically they're a volunteer or they're a paid employee in that scenario, so if it's on their home computer and they're using it for the purposes of the not-for-profit, as long as the not-for-profit retains the ownership of the license and gets it back from that person if they cease that role, then there's no problems with that.
Great. Well, in that case, that's the last question that we had. For those who had specific question that we did say we would follow up, we will email you separately. And Ryan's just switched to a slide for if you have further questions on the program or particular products, please email us through those email addresses, and Ryan or our customer support team will be more than happy to help you. Other than that, thank you very much for attending the webinar today. The webinar recording and also the slides and a few other bits and pieces will be sent to you by email later today. And what was I going to say? Also, if you are interested in attending our upcoming webinars, we do have quite a range of things happening. So just go to our website, connectingup.org/events. Other than that, please have a good afternoon, and I hope to see you again in our next webinar.